Okay.
Hi, Greg.
Hello.
Right. Open up at 6 p.m. on Wednesday, August 24th. Call this meeting of the Ocean Highway Authority to order. Mr. Norton will be leading.
Father, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for the opportunity that we can come and do your business and the business of the county folks. We ask now that you would bless this meeting, that you would give us wisdom and direction in the way that we should go. Be with our country, our leaders, be with our military, our police and fire, doctors and nurses that serve us on a daily basis. We ask that you would bless them and protect them. Now watch over us as we conduct your business and the business of the county, for we ask it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Please join me to pledge allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Poole,
Here.
Commissioner Fullwood,
Present.
Commissioner Nelson, Vice Chair Taylor. Thank you. Chair Hill
Here.
and Mr. Kwiatkowski is not here.
Okay. Yeah, and just to clarify for the roll call that Vice Chair Taylor is in Pensacola at the Board of Works Council annual meeting representing the club. Obviously, excused absence, but he's there representing the Port of Fernandina and all the other ports in Florida. I'd like to recognize our elected officials and dignitaries and others in attendance. Mr. Fullwood, thank you for being here. We have Commissioner-elect Scott Moore. Thank you for being here. Congratulations. He'll be serving in District 2 once he is sworn in and sees office in November. And then Davis Dean, thanks for joining us. So next up is our old business. Again, this is a short meeting tonight, so we don't have the review of minutes from our last meeting. And we don't have our committee reports, so relatively short to that. So first up is 7A, under old business, the pilot settlement allocation of funds. This is discussed in the budget workshop that the $87,000 that will be paid out this fall to the city of Myrtle Beach as part of the pilot settlement, which was entered into and made final with the court on Friday. That funding would come out of an account which OPA has on hand. And I think that was an item for Pierre to discuss.
Let's discuss.
So I think we discussed the fact that obviously the pilot payment that you entered into and agreed to, the pilot settlement, whatever agreement, settlement, whatever, requires a $37,000 payment when the agreement's signed, and then a pilot payment of $50,000 on 10/1/2024, and then every year thereafter.
And that's for 2024 or 2025.
What? No, 10/1/2024. Right, the first pilot payment. So besides the $100,000, which is going to come from the operator.
I understand, but what I'm asking is the extra 50,000 pilot payment. Will that be credited to 25 or
No.
2024?
No.
So we'll have to come up with another one next year.
Right, it's due every year.
Yeah.
On October 1st, every year thereafter, as far as into perpetuity, I think, but that's don't.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, so and so obviously the question was, where are those funds coming from? Obviously, there was discussion about obviously the port operator and increasing the tariffs to collect the money for the pilot payment going forward. But obviously those tariff changes and obviously the collection is going to happen over a 12-month period.
Right.
And so the 50,000 will be in place to make the payment in October 1, 2025, in theory, based on whatever tariff agreement you guys come to. But obviously, there's no money right now for the October 1, 2024 payment, which is in the agreement that you've reached. And so we've included in the budget $87,000 of payments for pilot payments, which is going to come out of essentially our COVID, our ARPA funds at this point, unless we have another source for those.
And the other 100,000 is in escrow with the operator.
Right. So yeah, the operator holds those funds currently. We have a receivable and a payable on our books, and what, you know, I don't know if the agreement calls for the payments to have to come from us, and then the operator will obviously send us the $100,000, so we have a $100,000 receivable on our books, and then a $100,000 payable to the city, which has been on there for whatever, since we canceled the pay, since we stopped paying the pilot payment 3-4 years ago, whatever it was. So that $100,000 has been sitting there.
So we can take the 87,000 out of the COVID funds.
Oh, yeah. Yes,
Do we have enough in there to do that?
at this point, yes.
Good.
And like we talked about, so that's fine that we do that. Obviously, those COVID funds we've been using to both fund our legal fees and any other overages that, you know, we've had it pretty easy for the last 3 years, because we've had those COVID funds withdrawn, whether it be the master plan, whether it be the port director, legal fees, all those have been able to come from those COVID, be funded from those COVID funds, not paid by the COVID funds, because the COVID funds are reimbursing your salaries, but obviously we've been able to allocate the money that we recovered to other things. And so essentially, you know, in a roundabout way, being paid for by the ARPA funds, right? And so obviously there's money there, but like we talked about before, this $87,000 will substantially reduce the amount of money we have left over, which means that going forward, there's going to be more issues with any overages spending, especially things like legal fees or anything like that go over. At some point, and I've told you that before, at some point we will run out of money and we will not be able to fund those. We'll have what's. So the amount that we have left to claim is $60,000. Okay, that's the amount, but we have some left. We have some in our current bank account. So we have a balance in our bank account of 100. Report me 100 and some thousand. So that's excess is COVID money also, right? So so the 60,000 is what's left for us to claim. That's still at the state of Florida, right? So that's the last submission, which we'll do probably in September or early October to get that last $60,000. And we may have to do it. I'll have to look and see at the cash flow. We may have to get that $60,000 before we can make this $87,000 payment.
I think, Madam Chair, I think the last meeting, something said about that COVID money, we didn't have anything to show for it, but I disagree with that, because we got a lot to show for it. It pays for the master plan, it pays for our salaries, it pays for other things, so we didn't use it for other things we'd like to have used it for, but it did do us some good.
It pays for the master plan. I'll see it pays for the port director. So it paid, you know, so.
Okay. Any other discussion on that item? And I did note the sort of financials, if you're looking for them in the packet, they came in late on Monday. Those are not attached to the agenda. So here reference a few items in the budget. Those are in an email in your inbox from Monday.
We're not taking any action on the budget anyway.
We're not, but just if anything you to, okay. All right, next up is item 7B, the Fort Clinch vessel disposition. And you all have received in your emails, you've seen the red lines for the that agreement. And we also have some deal points, which Patrick prepared and Rosanna circulated. And I did print hard copies and then I left them on my printer. So I do not have those with me, but I'll read them off to you. And, they are, the Pro Patrick, this is the email. My request is that the board formally vote to give the court attorney the continued authority to negotiate the purpose and sale agreement and amendment to the operating agreement with the following substantive terms and conditions. In the purchase and sale agreement, the purchase price for the vessel is $1.1 million. The purchaser pays for all closing costs, including reasonable attorney's fees. The purchaser must remit full payment within 30 days of the execution of the PSA. And then the operating agreement was amended so that Oakland would receive 20% of all revenue generated from use of the port quench. The port operator would provide quarterly reports showing all use and service of the port quench and all invoicing for the vessel and use and service. The port quench would remain at the port of Fernandina and provide continuous service to the port of Fernandina customers. If the port quench is not available at the port of Fernandina for any reason, whether it's on other calls, repairs, maintenance, etc., the operator will immediately notify OPA and will advise of plans to secure tug service for the port of Fernandina and its customers, which is all. And then he asked if there were any other terms or conditions. And so that's for us to discuss tonight. These are just starting point. Obviously, he can't, Patrick can't negotiate a final agreement without that coming to the board. But this reflected some of the discussion we've had at previous meetings about sharing the revenue. Different percentages have been thrown out. And then also the 1.1 million purchase price that was intended to help to offset the initial year pilot payments, which we would otherwise have a shortfall for, because we haven't yet amended our tariff to generate that revenue. Do you have that email, Rosanna, that you could put,
Not up there.
let me know if you want me to reread.
I've got a copy, you make a copy for myself. If anybody wants to look at it on that. So. Madam Chair, I can pretty much agree with most of this, the purchase price. I know that's to negotiate the purchase price, and we'll have to negotiate with them about that, I'm sure. But where it says amended to the operating agreement, open to receive 20% of all revenue generated from the port quench. If you call a tug, Greg, from Jacksonville, you attach whatever it costs to the ship. If you're unloading or docking. Is that correct?
Are you asking if the shipping line pays for it?
Right.
Yeah,
Usually, do we share any of that revenue from any tug we call from Jacksonville?
no,
Well, if they buy this tug and own the tug, why would they agree to give us any revenue from the tug that they own and they pay $1.1 million for it? I don't understand that. I don't think they would agree to it.
yeah, is that, can I just ask, is that 20% of echo? Was it meant to be two?
No,
And is it gross or net?
it's all revenue, so that's a good point.
Gross revenue,
So that would be profits.
net revenue,
net revenue.
after expenses.
So just a little bit of history there going back. So the tug was purchased by OPA with federal grant money, and the federal grant money would be paid back in the proposed transaction. And the portion of the grant money that was for the tug was $750,000, I think, for the tug, and the rest was for the
Well, I believe it was 800,000 for when we initially bought the tug.
Yes.
It was 800,000 and then 200,000 was for maintenance.
and then a portion was for those additional.
So that,
800,000 for the from the grant, well, to 189,000 in refurbishments, roughly 200,000 from the operator. That was to secure it, make it seaward, and put it in service.
Well, and so, the grant was one for 1.2 million, and obviously we received 1 million. The operator bought the 4 or 6 as the contribution, their contribution to the grant. So an extra 250, is it 6 trucks or 4? 6 trucks were bought by the operator under the grant.
But they were bought in Nova's name.
They're part of the grant, yes. And so I'm assuming that this includes the tug and the equipment, obviously.
The trucks. There was
Which
supposed
were
to
already-
be some additional bond parts purchased. But when the barge started to make a U-turn south, that was put on hold.
But obviously the trucks, they've already paid for it through a contribution, the $250,000, their contribution.
So the purchase of the tug is not including the truck. That correct?
It was purchased at the same time. Those trucks and the tug.
It was part of the same grant,
Yeah,
and the tugs were the matching contribution, right? The grant was 80-20, whatever the percentage was.
But if you sell them the tug, or that include the trucks along with it, that's what I'm asking.
The purchase agreement that we proposed lists all those assets, tug and all the traffic trucks. So where did the 20% come from? Because we've seen a proposal from OPA that included the 2.5%.
Where did the 2.5% come from?
I know the 2.5% came from the initial proposal, they made a little return documents to us, to the operator from OPA. My question is, where did the 20% come from?
I'm not sure where the 2.5 or the 20 came from. This is, so what Patrick's looking for is direction from OPA as to, where to start the negotiation and, whatever these, the breakdown of the overall grant. I think the spirit of this is that it's an OPA asset, the tug is an OPA asset that has appreciated. And if we're going to dispose of it, and sell it to any party, that if we're going to do that below market value, the share of revenue would offset for that over time. So if we're selling at market, then we would need to get an appraisal,
And you're welcome to get an appraisal.
because we did do that as part of the transaction previously. So, have you been able to show the vote to anybody else?
no, and last night I had a conversation, with one of my contacts that had actually been in contact with McAllister. And I pushed them last night very hard to get me some kind of final disposition on where they are with this deal. I know it is on the chairman's desk. And like I said, I did push him last night, told him I needed that immediately, if not soon. So that way we can know exactly where we stand, and then we can proceed with, whatever direction this board wants to go.
And obviously having a percentage and having this level of reporting every time there's, back and forth, there's more opportunity for, just friction. So I can understand if, the operator, if you all wanted to propose a different fee structure as opposed to a percentage, or as opposed to this, reporting, but this was just one of the ideas that he presented for our consideration.
So we've been given a red line version of the purchase agreement and a proposed amendment to the operating agreement.
But they're not approved by the board yet. Those have been voted on by the board.
We might have another study right now, 20% revenue share, non-starter, interested, will pass.
I can't blame them. They need it. I mean, Now you after the fact, you would give them on this. To help us settle this issue and problem. So,
I can agree with once they take ownership of the vessel, but we still have to look back at, July of 2022, when that revenue from that tugboat went to revenue. And it's still going to them to this day, 100%. That concerns me. That's a negotiation point on, okay, let's be fair about this. You know, I do agree that once they purchase it, it's their boat. They're responsible for it. It's their, you know, it's their vessel. But we still have to look at the monies that was made, the revenue that was made off of that cash cow all the way back to 22.
and that, we look at that number.
And then you looked at the number of what the revenue was.
Yes.
Yeah, we made it available, it's in, like all the invoices that have those line items, they're available at the Blue House, and said this was selling one. And that will.
Okay,
But
I can come on Friday.
How much is the Coast Guard inspection, the most recent one cost? So are you considering those costs?
Well, wait a minute. That was because there was repairs required.
Mhm.
Just a couple of years, I believe it was 2022, when we got that tugboat out of the shipyard in Palatka,
Right.
that we spent like 150 something thousand on.
we spent,
And that was-
not.
And now it's operator money.
Yeah, but those are refurbishing.
So,
But
also,
when that tug came out of, y'all hadn't been here yet. You didn't come until July
Talking about-
2022.
We're talking about Nassau terminals.
But I'm talking about prior to that, this money's been.
The entity existed then, and that's what all that. So there's no difference.
the operator in money, I know you consider two different operators, but
At that time, it was worldwide terminals.
But it didn't come out of the maintenance
Oh,
reserve
hold on.
again?
At that time, it was Nassau terminals.
only part,
Worldwide.
and the total spending. So
Y'all didn't take over, Savage didn't take over until July 2022.
But once you buy an entity, you control that entity, and it comes with all that history. It evolves on that. Right?
I'm not sure that I can buy that because that money was expended from the operator at that time to get that tugboat out of the shipyard.
Right, but that's why it's
You
called.
might have assumed it after it was already expended.
Right, we can talk about timing.
I'm just telling you, because, you know, I'm the one that had to go down there and get it.
I'll just say, even at $350,000, which was just expended, $5,000 per tug movement. You do the math, how many movements?
Not 5,000, 6,500.
Okay, 6,500, how many movements just to cover that bill? And how many movements does the tug actually have here at the Port of Ferdinand?
From
So you're
July
talking-
2022 to now, it's been covered. It's been covered multiple.
No, we're talking about the payment that was just made, it was just in the yard. Are we talking about the current?
Yeah, that's right.
We're talking about the
Yeah,
the
but
recent,
I'm saying the money that they have received,
but I'm talking about $360,000 was spent in 2024
So
to bring that tug up to service and to Coast Guard specifications, right, to get its certification. $360,000. That means at $6,500 per tug, you do the math. How many movements does that tug have to make
I was
before
glad
it,
to do them.
before it even recovers that much? No, that's no gas in the tug. No, I'm just saying, I mean, I find it, I think if you looked at it, the tugs at best break even. Right, maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, you know, and again, these $360,000, well, you do, I mean, I'll do
I'm just saying,
math for
I
you.
know that in a month's time, with 5 ships times 13,000, you do the math.
right,
5 ships each month, or?
5 ships a month with
Is
a,
that?
docking and undocking that's $13,000.
Yeah, if you look at 2022 and 2023, we didn't have fire chips.
I'm looking at what I'm actually thinking of now was before you were not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Well, I can tell you what, 2022 is one of your highest tonnage years, and those ships were coming and going.
and then also the question, does Summer Island require it? No. No.
If you're talking, docking a ship and pulling one out, unless we go outside of the basin and get him, you're talking about 30 minutes or less of running time.
Well, if it's $6,000 in, $6,000 out.
$13,000 per vessel, period, with the exception of Summers Island. They were
So you're
exempt
saying on average, 4 vessels a month, so 52 grand times 12, $624,000 a year. I mean, okay, so that's top line,
If,
right?
if that's,
If that's right.
yeah, if we're talking historical, no, 2022, go back after 2022, we were a month without trips.
23 you did.
Yeah.
And,
Last after 2022 and 2023 was a big dip. Yeah, and in that year, 2023, we spent $360,000 just on one dry out. And then we got 4 people that work for that time, plus we have people. And regular maintenance.
Well, I think,
But this is the bottom line. We don't know the fair market value. We assume it's something less than $1 million. Our offer was to, do the $1 million, help with the refund, the Marriott grant, preserve, our reputation and Opa's reputation with Marriott. That was our goal. I'll tell you right now that the direction that this is going now, we're losing interest. This isn't a viable purchase. This isn't justifiable. We can't really rationalize it with our investment maybe now. And a revenue share like that is just not.
Well, if it's net revenue, then it would, there might be months where there isn't net revenue, right? Because the expenses might exceed the,
Net income.
right,
Yeah, well, yeah, if it was based on income, yeah, there would be months where it would be negative, it would be nothing. Just mathematics.
Now, a flat fee would be agnostic to whether or not you're making profit on the tug. I know that historically it's been reported as a fixed cost asset and it's positive, to investors, but that may not be true every year. So if you all wanted to come back with something, an alternative fee structure, I think we would love to see that. I think part of the challenge has just been that it's, it's opaque, it's kind of black box. So the board doesn't really have clarity. I mean, if we have some numbers, it gives us a basis to say, okay, 1 year revenues were great, next year not great. So what do you want to do moving forward that's fair and just respecting that it was a public asset that was not taxed, and it was, and we did not get a share of the revenues for those years. Virginia had in the past, but if we're going to dispose of it, we want to have, some ability to, get some recurring revenue. We're always looking for recurring revenue sources just to fund the operation of OPA and to fund future investments. And it's irresponsible for us to dispose of it for less than that.
Madam
Yeah,
Chair.
that's fair. I don't think we vote fair market is right now, unless we put it up for bid. And so that's why we like the option of refunding that, because it just put that out of the equation, what's required. I think fair market, we tested it, we work with tug operators, multiple tug operators, and we have confirmation that, yeah, the fair market should be less than dollars.
Madam Chair, how much are we paying back year?
$1
How much?
We owe Marriott $1 million.
And that's what they're asking for. Less than.
Well, so if we go back to the original agreement, right? If we get an appraisal, do a bid, then there's a split of revenue between Marriott and us of whatever the fair market value is. Okay, but the $1 million is to essentially cancel the agreement, right? To just wipe it away and go back to square one. If we're disposing of the asset, if we want to dispose of the asset per Marriott regulations, we would get an independent appraisal, which is what we talked about a long time ago, that we need an independent appraisal, not another client, an independent appraisal. And then we put it out for bid from there. And then if it's not worth $1 million, if it's worth $800,000, then essentially that 800,000 goes to Marriott and essentially ends the grant. As I understand with that, there might be some nuance I'm missing there, but if I remember correctly, that was the problem.
Well, we got a deadline, September 30th, correct?
Correct. Well, yeah.
It's $1 million, and then the 291,800 was never expended, and it's already been obligated, so the original award was 1.2918, so 1,291,800.
Well, and so I think there's always been the 291 was expended on the tugs. And Marriott, for whatever reason, never matched that up. You know, remember, it was supposed to be an 80-20 grant. They were only supposed to send us, I don't know if you remember, but we were only expecting $800,000 or something like that, and $1 million showed up.
Yeah.
Okay, when we actually purchased the tug, because it was supposed to be 80-20, right? And there was another 291,000 to be expended, which would again be an 80-20. So whatever that math was, we were not waiting, but they sent us $1 million. And that's fine. And we said, okay, we're going to buy the operator bought the tugs for the matching contribution that was required by the grant.
That sounds correct because of the 800,000 for the tug, and then they allocated 200,000 for internal maintenance.
Right. And the operator was going to put that $200,000 into the bank. That was going to be their matching contribution. And then all of a sudden, $1 million showed up from Marriott. And we're like, fine. And it was too complicated to send it back to Marriott. And so, again, so.
All right, so what we're looking for is just direction to Patrick that says, please negotiate terms. And so we can give him some outer bounds, right? I mean, we are in sunshine, so you can see fully, you know, we're all showing our negotiating cards, right? But what would be the terms that you all want Patrick to ask for as a starting point? Do you want to start with a net revenue share, or would you like to propose a fixed fee? What's the will of the board?
Madam Chair, with your permission, I'd like to go back and confirm something with, Ray. You mentioned 2%. Have you heard anything about 2%? Because seeing the 20 and hearing 2%, that's the first I've heard.
So
So I just want to be clear that, that we're on the right line.
no problem. We gave an operating agreement proposal, essentially a draft, to OPA, to Patrick. It came back to us redlined with a draft or proposed amendment agreement. And the amendment agreement, or the amendment had a proposed 2.5% revenue share.
Which has never been voted on.
Apparently, okay, before board.
That's the reason I'm trying to get into this,
To us.
because I'm hearing.
Well, I mean, you know how we act is by vote. So, you know, if he's putting it in there, I don't have it in front of
We
me.
didn't
But
accept
you would
it,
have,
so-
yeah, but you would have noted, I don't have it in front of me, but you would have noted that as subject to final approval of the board. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's fine,
Yeah.
but that was the draft, that
Okay.
was the term. right?
Okay.
So we have red lines, we have a draft, amendment, and it had 2.5% in there. And, I think we redlined the operating or the purchase agreement and sent that back. Didn't redline the amendment. And that's where we stand.
And you red line like 2.5%.
No, that was in the amendment. So that's just sitting, we're still reviewing it.
Okay, so you can't, you're not willing to tell us right now if that's negotiable.
Oh, the 2.5%. We're not interested in burdening the operation with passing documentation and financial statements and tonnages and all that, gathering all this stuff to go over it. Yeah, I think we could make it a lot easier. I think we're willing to do something to compensate OPA in some way, where we could just call it, it's something in lieu of a revenue share. But we're open to, just, I mean, a one-time payment now, just saying, you know, here's a one-time payment, it doesn't burden us, let us keep growing the port, getting customers, focusing on that. And, it could give OPA some money to work with.
Like I tell you, if I was buying a boat and you wanted part of my revenue, I would say absolutely not. That's my feeling.
Well, we've been looking for recurring revenue streams wherever we can find them, so I would be in favor of the recurring revenue stream, even if it is a fixed fee. And it could be something where it's, you know, fixed based on vessel call, or it could be, it could be based on, you know, single use of the tug, just a fixed amount. That was fair, and recognizing that there's a lot of operating costs, you know, for the tug. So I'm not sure if the 20%, if what Patrick meant was net or not, but I'm hearing that that's too much if it's gross.
Yeah, even 2.5%, we're not interested in putting something in place that doesn't have an end date.
Okay.
If we, I'm just.
Well, it makes sure that it does say support. So it would be.
Yeah, we're not interested in tying into the asset, and our intention would be to use the asset for a lot of years. And I just think we're not interested in that. Just encountering the asset, the documentation is just, it doesn't seem worth it, and it's a small amount of money. And just to put it into perspective, 2.5% of, like, currently how many trips we're using it for a year would be between $15,000 and $20,000 a year. Maybe you run out, let's say $15,000 or $20,000 a year to eternity, and then discount back to today. The net present value of that is between $100,000 and $150,000. I mean, that's an eternal cash flow. It's only worth $100,000 to $150,000 today. It's not that much money. Considering the work that you have to do to keep that going for, you know, eternity, it's not worth it to us. So it's just, there's got to be a better solution.
Okay. So I think we all agree on the other item, C. If it is a percentage of revenue, obviously we need reporting. If it's a fixed fee, we don't need that second part, which is about quarterly reports. If you all own it, if it's a fixed fee that's not based on use and service, then we don't need invoices, we don't need that. So I think those two, the first two items would go together, the 20% and those reports. If it's a fixed fee, an alternative, we wouldn't need that second part. I think we all agree that we would want the boat to remain domiciled or based at Port of Bernardino and primarily available to serve Port of Bernardino customers.
We want that too.
Great. And then, if it's disposed of, so let's say that we, you know, enter into a purchase agreement and they sell it to a third party within a few months. One of the things Patrick mentioned after he sent these points over was like, you know, there would be something like a, you know, some sort of revenue share if they sell it for more than the purchase price, those sort of things. So those were deal points that he threw out. Do we want to go ahead and vote to give him the authority to negotiate with these at the outer bounds and then let them work out an additional, you know, if they want to come back with a different proposal, they can negotiate that and I'll come back.
Madam Chair, you're the chairman. I think you can direct him to do that. We don't need a vote from us. I mean,
He's
we
asked
all.
for a vote. He's asked for a vote because he wants to go back and negotiate
When he says formally voted.
So I will need a motion.
Madam Chair, with your permission, Vice Chair Taylor just emailed me and he wants to comment on this item. May I? He wants me to read his comment.
We don't normally do that.
Okay.
I'd like to hear it.
I would like to hear too.
I know we don't normally do it, but I'd like to hear it.
Do you want me to call him?
It's
And let him
I'm
read.
somewhat at a disadvantage because we don't have effort to advise us on our
Yeah.
sunshine rules.
Yeah, well, he's asking permission, but at your discretion, of course,
Okay,
so,
I mean, I'll let you read it and Patrick can tell me I'm wrong here.
okay.
Yeah.
He said, I apologize, I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting with a few hot button issues on the agenda. I felt it was relevant to comment even though I'm unable to vote this evening. Tab 7B, Fort Clinch Vessel Disposition. It is my understanding we have a deadline of September 30th to pay back the MARAD grant. That being said, we seem to be in the 11th hour, which will make negotiations a little difficult. First, I appreciate the operator for offering to purchase the tug, since this will lift a heavy burden and pay back the grant. Based on the email yesterday, the recommendation is for a purchase price of 1.1 million, higher than the original offer of 1 million, sorry. According to Greg, they have already invested approximately 750,000 into the vessel. If we want this partnership to succeed, we need to understand how they continue to help us and work with them towards a more successful and prosperous future. Let's focus on selling for the original offered price of 1 million and begin negotiating a share of the profits with the understanding that whatever revenue is decided, it benefits us as a whole. I'm sure items will be addressed this evening that could possibly influence my opinion, but as of the start of the meeting, this is where I stand. Thank you.
Thanks for reading that. Yeah, so I appreciate Commissioner Taylor, Vice Chair Taylor's words. I think the challenge with reading a statement at the beginning of a meeting is that he may not make the same statement in real time if he was part of this meeting. Right, and so my retort to the concern there is that if we do sell the vessel and pay back the grant, which is actually what's been proposed by Savage in one transaction, then we have to deal with these issues now. We can't kind of like kick the can on the revenue share because you can't, convey the asset and then later try to negotiate some sort of revenue share that hasn't worked for us up to now. So that I don't think that would work.
Madam Chair, I move that we allow Patrick to negotiate with the operator because.
Great. So based on the deal points, is your motion that we, based on the deal points that he's provided, that he can negotiate and come back with a counter offer?
I'll second that, but
All right.
I feel like Savage has done more than enough, and. Well, we got a motion for discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, that we're in the 11th hour, we've got to do something, we got to do something in September. So.
Yeah, I think that we would be open to hearing, any of the revenue and cost presentation, even if it's just really high level, if that would give us a better sense of, that if there isn't really truly that great of a margin, then it makes the request for 20%.
I believe so. Just to be clear, the intention is that these funds, if you agree to a revenue share with the operator, are going into the OHPA operating account and not the capital maintenance contribution account.
Correct.
I just want to be sure.
Yeah.
Because obviously that presents a different scenario for the operator, right?
Right.
So you're saying these would go into
I'm not saying anything, it's just asking.
separate accounts?
What the intention is to have those revenues come to the OHPA operating account, not into the maintenance or account.
Correct.
I'm just asking. So,
Right, so the motion and second, is there any further discussion on this item? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries 4-0. Right. Next up. The Nassau Trade Flex sign, just a solicitation, or direction needed. So I think Rosanna had put together, she was going to put together a solicitation for the sign. Or were you just asking for amount?
Yes, before I solicit their interest on having their sign put up, I need how much we want to, charge for leasing the space. Who's going to maintain the sign? Who's going to buy the sign to put up on the, so I need directions for that, just in case somebody is interested, I can tell them these specifics.
I think we had said that we wanted to contact them and offer the $100 a month per square. Didn't we?
Somewhere along that. I
I thought that was in the sentences. You guys still good with the $100 a month? It's not worth as much, you know, than what it was.
And what that way you could find somebody that would maintain it for a lot less than that. Yeah, I know a lot of money to do for that, a lot of that.
I mean, to that point, $400 a month, if all squares are used, doesn't even cover the mowing.
Yeah,
We
that's
use
what again, that was for a cleanup and then one time. How many squares are on the board? Four.
Yeah, so do you want on both sides per customer or one on each side
Both sides.
per customer? Okay, and who will buy the sign or order the sign to put on? The customer.
I don't know what they want for their sign, but what they want it to look like, let them do it.
I mean, it's
I have the old one.
it's such a small amount,
Yeah.
$100.
Yeah, yeah, and do you even want to bother? Because,
He or she be charging more, you're on one people.
if you can get it, sure. I don't think there's a lot of demand for it. Obviously, there was that one company specifically that was a consumer, but I think the question is, no one's ever approached us to put a sign beside the one that was there. That's been there for a long time. No one's ever approached
I
us.
think when they give directions to the truckers that use that facility, any of those businesses, they give it. That's so great, but Nassau Trade Flex, and that's what the sign says already, Nassau Trade Flex. No, nobody really cares who's in there. I mean, if somebody's driving by,
Well, the only reason the business that had it was because they were a consumer. They were a storage place, right? They were an RV and boat storage place, so they were looking for consumer traffic.
I'm working, it looks uniform, that the signs are all like uniform color scheme, so they can match them. We're not creating a next word.
yeah, so who's gonna enforce that?
Well,
If-
I think they would have to submit a proposal to us with their specs for the sign, and it has to be approved before they can put it up.
Do you also want to?
That's why I do the money.
I think it's a possible road in there, you know. Not much.
Do you have the direction you need? Rosie?
Yes, thank you.
All right, new business, AA, normal engagement letters, so these are attached to the packet, and we review these on an annual basis for our audits.
So before we get to this, I'd like to have one item revisited, I think, from the last meeting. The bank statements. Yeah, so I think, yeah, you guys
Yes.
talked about it last meeting, yeah?
Yeah,
So if you remember, so obviously we currently do not receive copies of bank statements from our bank. They're downloaded by Rosanna from the website. She has access to the bank account. She downloads the bank statements and emails them to us. My recommendation, so my recommendation, so there's a $2 fee. So we used to get copies of the bank statements, hard copies mailed to us and delivered obviously to Rosanna, but delivered to my office sealed. Okay. There's a $2 fee per bank account to do that. I highly recommend that we continue to do that and incur that fee. This is an internal control. You're about to sign a letter.
Yeah.
That says you're responsible. There's at least 4 paragraphs in here that make you management responsible for the internal controls of the entity. This is an important control because obviously it's our bank account. It's where the money is. And again, this is a good separate stream of information that comes from the bank directly to us when we reconcile. In other words, we don't have control of the bank. We don't have control of checks. I'm not accusing anybody of anything.
You want it to be
Obviously.
mailed to your office.
Well, whether it be mailed to my office or, you know, they used to be mailed to Rosanna, which is fine because she delivers to us, them to us, and she was instructed to deliver them to us unopened. Right? You want them in the envelope that they come from the bank, right? Which is fine. So whichever way, whether they're mailed directly to my office or they're sent to Rosanna, she's instructed not to open them to deliver it to us. That's an important control.
They're mailed to Rosanna now.
No, now we don't get them at all. We don't get them at all. We used to. Obviously, there was again, $4 fee, $6 fee, whatever.
You don't get digital statements.
Hmm?
You don't get digital.
We get digital statements. I'm just going to tell you that obviously those digital statements, again, there's an internal control of that.
It's not, I mean, it's however you want to do it.
Okay, so I'm just telling you that I
You're the
prefer,
last week, I don't think we had any context.
right, so I prefer that we continue this control be in place, that we get these paper statements mailed to us. And so, and again, you're about to sign a letter that says you guys and me, obviously, as part of management of this entity, are responsible for the internal controls, and that's an important internal control. Again, it's a separate stream of information for our most important, our money.
You're talking about Malden and Jenkins, that's the internal control they're looking for.
Well, so Malden and Jenkins will tell you that whatever you do, you're responsible for the design of the internal control. You don't have to do this. You can do something else. I'm telling you. Yeah, so I think we just need a consensus, right? I mean, it's $4 a month, and you can vote on it if you want.
Right, last meeting, the consensus was just keep getting it online and not pay the fee. Because I spoke with Mr. Stansberry and he said, his firm will accept the online copies, but when they do the audit, they have to watch me log on to the online bank and watch me retrieve the
And
the
obviously
statement.
and the issue is we don't do that, right? So again, this has been part of our internal control structure of making sure that there's checks and balances on everything that's going on.
Because someone could,
Well, if you want me to explain to you, somebody could download the PDF, change it, because you can get a PDF editor, do anything you want these days.
violence.
Yeah.
Okay, it's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good with that.
Okay, all right. So you need to turn those back on.
Okay.
Okay,
I will need a commissioner, an OPA officer to come with me to the bank and sign the release form for that.
to get,
You set it up and I'll meet you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And so what you have in your packet is the Malden Jenkins engagement letter for the, as you know, it's that time of year coming up on September 30th. So obviously we want the audit in place, the auditor in place. We've used Malden Jenkins for at least the last 5 years. Their fees included in it's a fixed fee arrangement. Remember, there is an additional fee potentially of, I believe it's $1,800 for our grant, for the additional fee that we've talked about when we have a grant of more than $750,000, which we will have this year. And so that's included in our budget also. And so this is just a standard engagement letter. It grows every year, but it's just template. And essentially, and again, the important points are that we, the management, is responsible for the internal controls and delivering the information to Malden and Jenkins, things like that. So this will allow us to kick off the audit in November. They'll be here in November to do their field work, and we'll have the audit done as we had this year, sometime in January, February, March timeframe. So I recommend signature approval.
Here to enter the engagement letter of our auditors, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion that we give them a second.
A motion and second. Any further discussion on the item? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those, the motion carries 4-0. Okay, the next item is the FMIT proposal for insurance, 2024-2025.
Examination.
Coverage starts
It's the same.
October 1st.
Chair Hill, there's another letter, examination. It's a different one.
And they're the same.
It's
They're
the
from
same.
Same audit, yeah.
It's all the same.
Okay, sorry.
It's just an examination.
It's
So-
essentially, we're engaging, not that I'm telling you what you voted for, but essentially, we're engaging Malton Lincoln to do our year-end audit, whatever is required by the state of Florida. There's couple different parts to it. As I said, part of it will be these over $750,000 grants, and so there's a separate engagement.
So just to be clear, the vote covers the engagement letter and the examination.
Yeah.
Okay, do you think your motion carries that? And your second?
You just do what the second one for them.
Okay.
I think his motion was for the audit, so I'll make a motion that we do the engagement. A second.
All right, motion and second to the engagement letter. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carries 4-0.
Thank you.
I think we're square.
Thank you.
All right. So next item, 8P. This is the FMIT invoice quote and
So for our insurance, so this is due in September, so usually pay this in September. And so this year, since this is the renewal for 2024, 2025. Obviously, we see a big drop in the workers' compensation insurance because obviously we don't have the salary of our port director. There is a slight increase in the general professional liability insurance. So just so for comparison purposes, you'd have to add the top two of the previous year. So it's about 13,000 something for the previous year versus 15,663. So it actually increase.
Madam Chair, I called Pierre and asked him to look at these deductibles. I didn't know we were allowed to take a deductible on any of this insurance. And I think we got a response back from them.
Yeah. Yeah, so obviously you can, so, but the difference would be very minor. So if you had a $5,000 deductible, you would save less than $1,000 on the general professional liability insurance. And then the same on the auto insurance. So his view was that that since the premiums are already small, the savings would be small.
$1,000.
yeah, so the challenge there is that if a board member faced a professional claim just in the course of performing your duties, which we all know happens all the time, those things have no merit. And if they, oftentimes they have no merit, they may be politically motivated or just random, it's very easy to initiate a claim against a public official. So this covers that defense, which you have to defend yourself, even if you're innocent. And if not, the board would have to pay that. So it wouldn't be an expense of the commissioner, it's going to be an expense of the board. So I don't know that we'd have to budget for the self-insurance. So you'd basically be budgeting for the amount of that deductible.
And remember, we've had a claim last year. And obviously, I'm pretty sure that this is also the insurance that's paying for one of the workers. So which
It was
the tax appraiser? No, which one's it?
yes, yes.
Tax
that's
appraiser is being covered by the insurance, right? Essentially we've had two claims under this insurance last year. Right, so in current, because obviously the tax appraiser case is still ongoing. So we would have two deductibles, so third deductible pay already.
So your recommendation is to leave the.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Right, so I need a motion in a second. To
So moved.
have a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the FMIT quote of $80,384. All those in, for the discussion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, none, motion carries unanimously 4-0. Okay, next up, we have other items. So we have, it's also needs receipts that were and storm impact on the board. I think the storm impact on the board is not the receipt items, right? That's the video.
Yeah, that's the video, and then the, other one is the invoice documents that we've been discussing.
Commissioner Nelson, before.
I just wanted to bring this to the board because I had a phone call that morning, Thursday, August 22nd, about the storm blast that came through at 6:45 a.m. Lasted for approximately 15 minutes. I did take some video and sharing that. And as you can see, it was worse than any of the tropical storms we've had. Based on what you see in there, if you'll watch that light right there, you're gonna see it move. It's not the light moving, it's the crane moving. And there's nobody on board the crane. The parking brakes were set. A very dangerous incident took place because that crane moved south down the dock about 50 feet by itself. It came within about 5 feet of the gangway of the ship. Pardon? It's rocking, but it ain't going nowhere. But if you look at the bow end of the ship, it's to the left of the, south leg. You're gonna see it start to fade away, and then you're gonna see the lights on the crane go out. And that means it ran over its power source and, killed power. I would just like to say in the future, because Greg is here, that in the future, if the crane is not manned, which I think in this case, it wouldn't have made any difference with an operator on board or not, that crane is still gonna push through the brakes. That if it's not manned and it's not being used, that we buckle it down. Because we don't know when these storms are gonna come through. And if you go back a few years, Jacksonville lost 2 cranes because of a summer storm downblast. It pushed a, container crane down the dock, into another crane, and they both collapsed. Now, you can go on YouTube and look that up, it's Jack Ford, container crane collapse. But if we can get that to happen, I know they've got hurricane tie downs. It is a pain in the behind, but we don't need a crane running down the dock, because if it would have got past the ship, the next stop would have been Mobile Harbor.
All right, the time of day, this was six, you said 6:40.
That was between 6:45 and 7 a.m. That crane
Would have been that time to do that?
no,
So,
because that down blast, and I will tell you what
all right,
I found out, and we can check it out with the National Weather Service, but they say there was a down blast of wind that was 80 miles an hour down the dock. And from the looks of it, if you look at the video, I will not shoot that at all.
we would have had time to tie that down anyway.
That's my point. It should have been tied down prior. You don't never know when you send it. They said the orders can't lay
Planning time down every day.
They should be tied down. That's what I'm saying. Because if not,
Is there a way to do that?
Yeah, sure is. Yeah, do you mind, yeah, that's, yeah, we want to look at this. Do you mind working with me and Kyle to
I'll work
find
with
a
this.
solution that works?
It's unnerving because I was on the dock in Jacksonville when those 2 cranes went down, and there was nothing anybody could do. Once that crane started running, all you could do was stand there and watch them collapse. You know, like $80 million worth of steel was piled up in the matter of about 2 minutes. Like I said, you're welcome to go online and look for it yourself, you'll see those cranes fly. But it pushed through the brakes, which to me is very disturbing. And if you would have had an operator up there, he would have been looking to get off that crane.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing he could have done, he could have stopped it. These are the things that we're not proactive on, the reactive part is not gonna be pretty.
Yeah.
I know that we had some gangway work that we've done at one time, and it's extremely expensive. That crane would have just wreaked havoc with that ship if we got on that gangway. But it pushed through the brakes. That's what I want to emphasize. It pushed through the parking brakes. They said it sounded like a train locking down its brakes and sliding down the steel rail. You could actually hear it. Well, you had the crane operator sitting behind him in his car. He heard it. He heard it before he actually seen it moving. He could hear the brakes, squeal. But it takes a heavy duty wind to push a 100 and something ton crane, down steel. rail. We need to be proactive in this and lock those in. Does it take a few extra minutes? Yeah, it might have to bring a guy in 30 minutes early to undo the turn bars. But you're gonna save the crane because that video don't lie.
Don't worry.
So, I did get a report from Kyle Clark about 11:45. He and I actually had some back and forth on it. There were some other damages that were minor. But everybody that I talked to when I was actually there, they said that's one came out of nowhere. It just happened. So we want to be prepared for that, rather than to explain to whatever agencies are going to show up, and they will be numerous, on how we didn't protect that crane from moving. So. Greg, you got any questions for me? I mean, I was out there, I looked at it.
No, this is big. Yeah, we appreciate this. This is a good, really good point. I didn't know that the crane had shifted during that storm, so Kyle and I will get with you to explore solutions to lock it down and see your opinion if you don't mind.
You've got it where you can move it back, but I will give you a heads up right now. I will look for some way of pinning that crane down. I know that there's old pins, the holes are still there in the dock of Hitachi.
Yeah,
Maybe we can modify it. There's gotta be a way we can retrofit those pinholes for those.
yeah.
anchor
And
cranes.
you know the spacing on those pinholes?
I know that it has a wider stance as far as.
Oh, than the existing
So
pinholes?
you're gonna have to do some modifying of that, but that's the reason
Yeah. we might
I'm
be able
saying
to-
now, let's do it before something happens to one of them. Those are assets that we can't do without.
Yeah, I agree.
Did Kyle not report to you that had happened?
No, I knew the storm, and I knew some of the damage, but not that the crane had shifted 50 feet.
I mean, the 480 volts, as soon as it
Oh,
it through the,
he did, sorry, go ahead.
no, it's on a breaker system. But I would like to see where we get it up, we make it somehow that it's not in front of the wheels of that crane. Or behind it. There's gotta be a way that if we have to move the power box to the side where it hooks into the crane, like the Hitachi was always to the east side. So if it moved, you didn't get the power. We've gotta look at what we've got here and make the corrections in it. Or,
So Kyle says that he's got two solutions being engineered right now. So we'll review them when they're ready to look at it.
I mean, I can come out there anytime, just let me know.
Okay.
I'll set my schedule where I can be there
Okay.
because, this is something that when I saw it was disturbing to me.
Well, and I wanted to thank Kyle on Thursday at 11 a.m., 11:45. He did provide an update.
Yeah.
That the, Blue Heron crane number 9 had shifted. He didn't say 50 feet, but Severn Shore Power Line due to wind that will be replaced. And it said that the crane was running. So, but I appreciate those real-time updates. I think that's,
We,
at this last storm, I didn't have it added to this agenda because it's a short meeting, but I wanted to discuss the next agenda, but this past storm response. I think that it would be good to have, Noah linked on our website because people do kind of check in and like to know weather reports, information is power. But, to have this real-time reporting is just, that is very critical in real time that we be apprised of what's going on. If we needed to take action, we would have to, come together in an emergency and we have to be available to do that. So,
well, I can set it up where you can get the, National Weather Service. Anytime there's an approaching storm. I know Kyle's on the call, I'm on the call, Orlando's on the call, the EOC is on the call. We're all called in to a conference call with the port captain. And National Weather tells us the good, the bad, and the ugly. This is what you can expect. This is what you need to get prepared for. And then the captain of the port will say, we're gonna go to your high wind plan and start executing. Then they send a team out there to make sure we do exactly what they've asked us to do. If you want to get in on that, I can put your name in and, y'all will be notified of the conference calls.
well, then we're having on quick, hey, thanks for coming.
So, I mean, it's good information for us, but it gives me something to follow up on and to go out there and make sure that I see that things are happening. So, I know you work with the EOC, you know what I'm talking about. So it's just something that I would like to be proactive with your group and, take it up.
We are having a public comment. But we will today.
Sorry, and I was actually on a ship. I came here, so that's why I didn't make it about 6, good, so. Talking to Captain, so with Ray.
Orlando Avila.
Orlando Villa, 1411 South 14th Street, it's my address. Every year in May, about a month before hurricane season starts on June 1st, the Harbor Committee does a big heavy weather planning briefing. They come, Captain Port comes, Customs, everybody comes, shipping lines, all that. They all show up, and then they do a wrap up at the end of the year. So this year was the first year they actually had the in-person one since COVID. And we have all the brainiacs from National Weather Service. We have probably one of the best meteorologists in the world, works in Jacksonville. His name is Al Sander. The guy knows hurricanes better than anybody does. And he tells you exactly what, and he's pretty accurate. But one of the issues that we had crop up in Jacksonville was with the cranes. I wanted to bring that up is Jacksport pins their cranes as a normal practice on the weekends anyways, but they also pin them as soon as there's a potential storm, they pin them down also. But when it comes to the heavy weather briefings and stuff like that, I try and copy everybody in, and it's so critical. But the issues that we have to getting information out to everybody else. So I'll continue to do my best to do that. But when they do the briefing wrap up, we need to, some folks from the Port Authority need to go and be present there, and then be present there at the pre-season briefing next year. But all the stuff, the heavy weather plan is on the Coast Guard's home port website. If you want me to, I'll send it to Joanne and she can disseminate it so that you guys have a heavy weather plan and you know what the different conditions mean, T, X-ray Zulu, and why and when and how it goes out. So, but I'm always available to answer questions. I've been in the industry almost 20 years, so I'm always willing to help out.
Thank you. Thank you. If we wanted to link that on our website, is that something we can do for?
The heavy weather plan is a PDF,
Okay.
so you can create a link to it. It's probably easier to have it as like a Google Doc upload or something like that, because if not, you got to go into the home port website, find it, link until you get to it, but you can download the PDF, and there's the main headquarters plan, 3 annexes, so it's a lot of bureaucratic mumbo jumbo to get down to the nitty gritty, but I can send PDFs of it.
Yeah, so that's what the Coast Guard, but then, when NOAA declares, you know, a state of emergency, or they start watching like certain, like even if it's just nor'easter, it's not a declared, or named storm or declared.
That's definitely NWS Jacksonville.
Yeah.
That's where you want to start is NWS Jacksonville, the National Weather Service, and then the NHC, the National Hurricane Center will do the National Weather Service. They work in concert, but they're two separate, so you got a lot of ends rolling around. National Weather Service, National Hurricane Center, NOAA, all that stuff, they all work in concert, but they all have their own peak, so to speak. But I always go to the National Weather Service for predictions and posts, because they'll do reports on what's happened
Right.
over like a 72-hour period.
Yeah, I think it would be helpful to have like the hourly range predictions. I know they do publish those and they update them, you know, throughout the day.
And the tides and the,
Yeah. I think that would be good information to.
Madam Chair, we have weather links on our website.
Mm.
It says current tide and wind conditions, currently local NOAA weather radar, marine forecast, current offshore wave height, currently, but it doesn't give doesn't tell us when the wave's coming out.
Yeah, when they have an event, they convene a team that is basically it's a situation command team, and they have much more granular information with wind load predictions in real time. And I've asked this before, but I haven't ever seen it myself. But I would think that our Nassau County Emergency Management Team would have a way to interface with the North Florida NWS. But if not, we could convene those parties, and we should. I mean, I've been part of storm response for JEA and, you know, been on those calls, and that amount of information is really helpful for port operators to know that it's 7:08 tonight. Anticipated wind speeds are going to be, you know, in excess of 70 knots or whatever it is.
We have teams that connect with to get all this data live, but something like that, right? It gets up so fast, there's almost nothing anyone can do. But there's storms coming in, we've got all these different people that we connect with that feed us storm data by, and we have our own internal meetings with Coast Guard, so. I mean, you can put the link there, but we.
It's one
It is
thing
under-
to have the storm forecast for you. This storm that happened on the morning of the 22nd was out of nowhere. I mean, because I went back and looked at the video, 6:35, it was normal, you know, Thursday morning. People were coming and going, 6:45, 6:47. All chaos workers. There's no response time in that. That's the reason that I'm asking that we make it a rule or a policy that those cranes, are buckled down. Until we can work something out with the pin process, then you can pin them down if you're in the works. But right now, you're dependent on those brakes, and you see what happened. I would just say it's not.
So Kyle's got these two solutions underway, we'll get with you, say, we've got something, that, show them what they are, one's a chalk, option, one's a pin option, uses pins, so.
Yeah, I think the pin is gonna work because I've seen with the Hitachi, once you put that pin down, the crane's not gonna move. The only thing is we don't go beyond the 80 miles an hour. If we have a storm even in the area, we put the hurricane buckles on it and we tighten it down.
Are you saying these buckles exist today?
They're out there.
Okay,
But those cranes will buckle down. Yeah, they've got big turnbuckles, they can put them on there and they ratchet them down and top of
okay, and what are they connecting to?
to the dock.
Okay,
Yeah, if you go to the north end of the dock, you'll see.
okay. So do the cranes, if they're able to use those, or they use?
Yeah.
You have to be positioned at the north.
You have to be positioned in that area in order to hook them because there's islands in the
Okay.
dock. That they hook onto and then you go right to the.
All right. Yeah, we'll get to, I
Yeah,
appreciate
I'll be
it.
glad to come out there and help in any way I can, but I just want to make sure we don't have this incident where, you know, we're saying, hey, it happened again.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Well, that's a question for the, because we didn't have any damage.
Yeah, so,
We wouldn't do that.
they're.
Well, I was out before yesterday, and I noticed, I never really noticed it before, but on both cranes, the arms are extended all the way out. It seems like they're usually pulled back in. Is there like two stages to them?
Yeah, they're.
But they're extended all the way out.
Yeah.
Was there something we're doing or?
What frame are you talking
The
about?
two-
Both answered.
Oh, you're talking about the booms are down.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and when those booms are up, those booms need to be in the hook.
Yeah.
They don't need to be laying forward of the hook,
Mhm.
which I've seen them many a time out of the hook. That's dangerous because now the wind can take control of that boom. What do you gonna do with it? So if they're all the way in the upright position, there's a big metal beam that goes and it falls behind the hook. And until you pull the slack in the boom, you can't get them off.
but I don't know what shit is there right now. More than not.
I'm sorry?
Well, you said you just talked to a ship captain.
Yeah, I was just on
Which ship is that?
the Takimola, the Yucatex vessel,
Okay.
doing fiberboard. Yeah, both the cranes, and it's actually causing an issue, because now I gotta get the air draft for the vessels. And the pilots have to account for the booms being down and making sure the air draft of the vessels clear the boom, so it does cause. I mean, it's a little bit extra, but it's a cause for concern for the pilots, because it is a safety factor, because you don't wanna bring a ship up underneath the boom like that, with a bad current or bad winds or anything like that.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah, if it's a big news to the board, I'd love to invite Orlando back to give us updates periodically about port operations and any concerns you might see in the industry overall.
I'll be glad to actually, I don't want to take up your time, but I did meet with, Matt and Virginia about a week and a half ago. We kind of talked general business. We kind of got to know Virginia because I didn't know her, and had met Matt, and we have some mutual friends in the industry, and other ports and stuff. So we get to know each other, but, we talked about the tariff and some things that I see that might be adjusted to give, actually give Savage a bit more of a competitive edge in certain respects, and possibly create other revenue streams. So I'd love to, sit down. I know talking with each of you individually is good, and then come and give you my 2 cents. And I gave Matt a couple of directives, and we're supposed to try and connect again when he's back down. So I literally live around the corner from the port, so I heard all those winds. And, but I'm, as available as I can be. With notice, I can make myself available to be at any time.
All right, thank you. Next item on is, also Commissioner Nelson's, this is the maintenance receipt.
Yes, because there's been some questions about, proceeding with the, tonnage building and everything. If, you can pull it up, and if you'll just go to the bottom, Roseanne.
All the way to the bottom.
And we'll just get that. This is what I've been talking about. That means that major receipt has been accepted by the captain. I think go back up a little bit to the, that one right there. You stop right there. That tells you everything you need to know about that cargo loading. Tells you how many rolls the TLD was loaded, what the average roll weight was, and what the total gross tonnage that was loaded on the vessel. Also, it gives the captain an opportunity to tell us if there was any discrepancies or any issues with that, and what he was saying right there. is you put rolls on the deck of my ship, at your own responsibility. He's only responsible for the cargo that's on the deck. Okay, so that's his prerogative to sign that, and you can see that it's signed by the captain of the vessel receiving that cargo to the vessel. So it would help Rosanna when she has to go back and look. There's a three-way, balance there, with the terminal, stevedores, and, crew of the ship. Because they do put people on the side of the ship, they're counting the same old, we're counting to make sure that what he's signing, they got. So it's a check and balance for everybody. But that is the industry standard. Every ship that I've ever worked in my career, that's a check and balance. If there's any exception, it's right there. So,
And what is the advantage of us having this?
pardon?
What is the advantage of us having this information?
Well, if you're gonna be building back any kind of tonnage, or you're gonna wanna know what kind of tonnage that you're getting in this going on the vessel out of the port, that's your definitive numbers.
Because we're gonna start receiving share, so we're receiving reporting from the operator. I think that's what this is responsible.
Exactly. That was the question that was asked to me. How would we verify? That's your best mode to do it. Right? And it's no secret. I mean, everybody knows.
So Madam Chair, this is our current request to the operator that we have the signed MAPES receipt.
As part of the tonnage.
Revenue share.
Okay.
Also,
So from our standpoint, from revenue reporting standpoint, it doesn't matter. I mean, remember, the auditors actually will go to Savage to their records when they're here, when a component of the audit, a significant component of our revenues includes revenues from the port coming from the port operator. The auditors will go to Savage and will verify the original documentation at Savage. So they're not going to rely on any records that we have. They're going to want to know that those records are complete, that the calculations are correct. And again, that's done, the extent of that work is done by the auditors. They're not even going to worry about what our records say, other than we receive these amounts, here's what the total of those are. And I've showed you the record that we received from the operator as part of the totals, the information that was exchanged back and forth when we had the dockage and wharf fees back in 2017, 2016, whatever, right? So those records are then taken by the auditor over to Savage or to the operator, the original records, to make sure that they've accounted for every ship. Because the question is, suppose you miss one ship. Suppose we don't get this for one ship, right? So that's what the auditors are looking for, right? That the records are complete, that every ship is included, and that obviously the calculations are correct and things like that. So us having this, again, because who knows if we missed a ship, just because the records were lost or whatever, unless, again, so. But,
So you get the ship schedule, pretty easy to follow.
Yeah, but even the
It's
ship
always
schedule,
check and balance, but she doesn't have any way of knowing
yeah, but
if she's gonna be responsible, who's gonna be responsible for the billing.
so we don't, so obviously this
Aren't
is,
you gonna charge back the tonnage that you got a percentage count?
no. So obviously you're shifting the burden, you're asking us to get all the records so that we can create an invoice for the operator. The operator is responsible for remitting, per the operating agreement, per the historical, the operator is responsible for remitting to us the amount of money per the operating agreement. Okay, and he does that. And they keep the records, okay, and they provide us enough information for our records for whatever calculations we want to do, but we're not. And like I said, the auditors then go verify that information. We don't, what would be the value of us going, besides the auditors? Remember, the auditors are already coming to do this. That's their job, is to certify the financials. For us to then, before the operators show up, to go audit the records again.
So when we had bonds, we had a process, and was that quarterly, that we had a third party auditor?
No, it
Or
was
was it
annual.
annual?
It was annual.
Yeah.
It was annual, and that's enough. I mean, again, remember, the operator is setting us, is remitting to us just like he does now. Remember, right now, we're getting
Admin and bunkering.
bunkering fees and admin fees, right? So we're getting admin and bunkering fees. How do we know we got all of them? We're not verifying that. Obviously, we trust that the operator is remitting to us. Now, the auditor will verify that that's a complete list at the end of the year during the audit,
By what means?
by going to the operator and verifying that by looking at the original records of the operator.
Yeah, that's what we're.
Whatever the auditor, I mean, that's what we pay the auditor to do.
So I think this is a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, we're,
It's a waste of time. I think we are following this to make sure that everything that we,
Well, we should trust our auditors. I mean, the auditors will pay a lot of money for them to audit this and look at these charges and make sure that the operator is paying us what he's supposed to be paying us. That's what we pay the auditors to do.
so he's gonna say, show me what I'm supposed to be looking for so I can verify that you have it.
I don't understand.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying,
No, the operator's good.
Maybe we can resolve it, I don't know if we're gonna find a resolution tonight, but, maybe what we could do is to send these examples to the auditor with the signed engagement letter, which I'll sign tonight before I leave. And we can just ask them, you know, can you let us know what type of reports you would be looking for, just to be sure that those reports are indeed like the level of granularity that they will be looking for next year. Because right now, the operator is incurring and doing, and an audit's gonna happen after all of the activity. So if the auditor comes back and says, this is what we're gonna be looking for a year from now, then we have our rights. How about that? Does that suffice?
That's it. So the auditor is never gonna tell you, so obviously the auditor is charged with making sure the records are complete and accurate, right? A single ship in this deep level of detail for the auditor, what they need, the first thing they're gonna need is a list of every ship that came in and was billed by the operator. That's their starting point. Not, so unless you're gonna take all these and summarize them into a list, which is fine, then you have a vessel cost schedule already.
Well, why don't we let them, in their words, tell us what they base the audit on, and I know that it'll be their own, it's not gonna be their audit of us. Like, I know it's not our job to go and get these records.
Yeah, but they think we need to do this.
So the auditor, so you just signed a letter
Yeah.
saying we're responsible for the internal controls of this organization, right? The auditor is verifying that our records are complete and accurate. Right. And so obviously, again, unless you're saying in the same way as the operator is going to provide us with, just like they do right now, a list of here's the admin and bunkering fee, here's your $14,000 fee, and here's what it's based on.
I'm gonna give you the basis for my concern. We made a request back in September of 23 for some financials. And they came to us in bits and pieces. I think if we do our diligence, that we can maintain something like this, we just require it. I mean, I'm just telling you, what, when it takes somebody months and months and months and nearly a year to get you something, I kind of have doubts about it. We asked specifically for, financials,
So
and
I'm just telling you that we're not staffed to do this. Obviously, if Rosanna has time, by all means.
That takes a lot of time to do.
This is-
all you do is you request the MAGE receipts for the vessel.
I understand.
It's a one page, you can do a one page. I just don't understand
But they
as
didn't have.
long as we're looking at it to verify. Isn't that what we should be doing?
Should we verify it?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that you got an order, but somewhere along the line, somebody needs to have the facts saying, yeah, this is fact.
I
This is
think,
what's on.
I think that shows that we don't have a lot of trust in what the operator is telling us, and I don't agree with that.
Well, you cannot agree if you don't want to, but I've been in the business long.
The previous operator, I might have a question about it. This operator, I think.
But it's also, you're asking, the operator hasn't even billed us yet.
Yeah,
You want Rosanna, which is by all means, Rosanna, you You want her to prepare an invoice to the operator for this?
I'm saying
By all
we need to have something that we have verified. That's the only verification you got right there, because now you've got somebody that's signing, saying that cargo was on that ship and the tonnage.
So maybe the question is for the auditor is just if we have these put into a Dropbox, she doesn't have to do anything with them. We wait for the remittances to come in at the end of the year. Is that even something an auditor would look at?
No.
Can we just ask them? Just
It may
to
cost us more money.
close the loop on this discussion and understand why not?
Because the dollars can only get original documentation,
Yeah, okay.
original
And that makes
documentation.
sense to me.
There's
It
no-
might be helpful to hear it from both.
Okay, but like I said, there's no record that what's in our Dropbox is every one of these ships.
Right.
Right?
I understand what you're saying,
I mean,
because we could modify those documents.
well, we could just lose one. One didn't come in the email. One ship left without, kind of whatever, paperwork got lost.
But indeed, there is no check and balance on your vessel schedule versus your cargo load.
Well, if we actually collected the revenue and generated invoices to the ships, and they paid us, and then we pay the operator, that would be controls.
Madam Chair,
Okay, yes.
2 questions. So it was my understanding that OPA had to invoice the operator to get the revenue share. That was my understanding, and that's why we were asking for the mate's receipts. But if it's not our job or not our responsibility to keep the records, I'm good with that, because it takes a lot of file to do that. However, but to Commissioner Nelson's point, we did work on this, and he taught me how to read the mate's receipt and the vessel schedule. So when do we start getting remittance for the revenue share?
Year 7.
So when is that year 7?
I don't know if that's this year or next.
That's
Is that November? So the contract year starts November 1st. Right? So are we in year 6 now? I have to go back to the records, but if we're in year 6 now, then November, year 7 is when the per ton fees kick in, if I remember correctly. Go back to the contract, but I'm pretty sure it's year 7. Okay, again, I have to go back and just do the math, make sure we're on year 7, but yeah, it's year 7 that the per ton fees kick in.
So I should look for a remittance from the operator November 1st
No,
of this year.
there's a schedule in the operating agreement, how it's paid.
Okay,
Right, but November 1 is the year, is the start of contract year 7, which means that obviously whether it be quarterly or monthly,
it's in the operating agreement.
Yeah,
If
and
it's
so,
quarterly or monthly. Can we have somebody confirm that right now?
Confirm what?
If it's quarterly or annually or monthly remittance?
So
Yeah,
that would
good job.
impact our budget.
Hmm?
That's gonna impact our budget.
maybe. If I remember correctly, a portion of those fees go to maintenance funds. Right. First.
So for the next meeting, can we please have like some additional clarity as to when the first payment's made? And what the impact is gonna be on the current budget, because we're gonna need to come prepared to take action. And that's our September 11. Okay. So that's the main receipt. I don't think we have an action item there. I know that there were some other items the commissioners want to bring that are not on the agenda, which I'm happy to just hear if anyone wanted to bring up for discussion. I actually know items from discussion.
Yeah, I want to bring something up.
Please.
Apparently, I was confused last meeting about the customs house. I know there was discussion about including the previous, or the old customs house, I'll call it the old customs house, in with the grant. And, the way that it's set up now, if we chose option B, the old customs house will not be included in that grant money. Because it's not connected and Customs and Border would not be using that old house. And the only way to get it included would be for them to use that house in some way. Well, that's
That
not.
was the discussion, actually. So that, I don't think.
But you wanted to change it and include, according to Rosanna, include option A and B? Is that what you wanted to do?
I don't think we've received the minutes from the meeting yet, but maybe when the minutes come out, it'll be clearer. But my recollection was that, you know, the Customs House has been in service, the historic Customs House has been in service of the port since the early 2000s, at least, maybe longer. And so that building has been in service of the port. If it for whatever reason became OPA's administrative office or was no longer in service of the port, it wouldn't be eligible for port funding.
Correct.
Right, okay, and so that was the concern, and when we discussed with Craig on the phone about this, he agreed that, that the building should be within the project scope, and it may not be within the funding scope for this initial project, this initial effort is for rehab of the warehouse, but that the building still needs to be considered part of the port operations and customs operations. And it could be that we go and seek additional funding for the Customs House for whatever purpose, but it has to be in service of the port.
I think when we talk about FDOT, you cannot get a grant to rehab that building.
If it's for admin, if it's just for admin, you can't. If it's in service of the port, you can't.
I went back to look at the proposal from Sistovich to see what was applied for in this most recent grant application. And the existing Customs House was not included, so the 2.6 didn't include
Right.
the old house. So,
Right.
so nothing was applied for.
For this first,
Yeah.
you know, draw of funding, I get that, and I don't think the intent was to take any of the funding from the grant, for the historic building, but it just needs to stay within the port footprint and within the customs footprint, even if it's not part of the initial phase one or whatever redo of the warehouse, that building needs to stay as part of the port, otherwise it's gonna be carved out and it's just gonna be sitting there.
And how people left them.
Well, if you do, we'll just lock it up and not use it.
Okay, so I think
I
we
mean,
can,
we don't see any use for it, sorry.
yeah, okay, well, maybe it'll be clearer when we look at the minutes of what we actually voted on. But that office being adjacent to the new customs facility, if it's included as part of the project, which is one of the proposals that Sistovich presented to us, then that customs office, the historic customs building, is still port property. If it's included in the drawings, included in this, it doesn't have to be part of the initial funding, the initial grant, but if it's included as part of the project, then
The issue that we're talking up against is it's been communicated to Customs and Border Protection that it was the warehouse renovation only, and that's what we're moving forward with for that. And it's planned and designed in a way to where it's standalone, they can just use the new warehouse. And so I think the concern is they're not interested in that building or having it wrapped in or tied to their operation.
Just because we did do a drawing of the existing customs house, if we wanted to use that instead of going to the warehouse. So you would have to combine those two and that, there's no way we could get money to this. Customs and Border is not happy about that. They want the original design D to be what we've been working on for months. If you include the customs house in some way, they would not be part of that. They couldn't use it for anything.
okay, so who from customs was, where did that discussion come from? So I'm happy to follow up for next meeting. We can't act on this tonight, but I'm happy to follow up, because I would love to know what the issue is. They've been in that building for now 20 years, so I'm trying to understand why including it as part of just the project footprint, even though it's not phase one of what's gonna be redone, just to include that existing building as part of the project footprint, why there's an issue with that.
There's an issue with
They don't have to use that space initially, it just has to be included.
if you can get it done that way without it costing us more money, I think you can do it. I don't know how you, are you gonna, you can include design A in with that, because you're talking about a lot more money. And who's gonna pay it? Are we gonna, I don't think you can get grant money over and above what we've already applied for to remodel that, the old custom. You might can get
The
new
existing
grant.
application is only for the warehouse.
For where?
Greg's telling us, but if this is part of the, customs and service of the port, the facility, then we would apply for additional funding in a different round of grant funding.
Did that say you could do that?
Yes. But not for administrative offices. So if it's carved out of the customs facility and it's just Opus admin, we're not gonna be able to get funding for that. If it's part of customs and it's part of the
So
overall
what
plan.
would we use the building for?
If you have a portion of the building that's used for public purpose, initially, there was discussion about having public reception areas, so it's like co-locating, so it's administrative office space, it could potentially qualify for funding, it just can't only be that. And the challenge is that when you make them two separate buildings, two separate projects, and one is that.
So I was thinking if we had that building separately, we could lease it out to someone and have a revenue building that, we could get funds from. I just, if you do what you're saying to do,
And so that hasn't really been brought up though. Is that?
well, it will be next meeting.
I've had discussion about
Really?
that, about
Yeah,
looking into
leasing that
leasing that building out, because I've put some feelers out and I've got some positive responses back, but I can't act. I'm just listening to what people have to say.
I talked to Orlando about it, and if, he said if he hadn't bought the building he's in now, he might consider that, but, there are other people out there that need our space, a lot of people,
There are.
and
And I think we need to pursue it if the board agrees, that we can put those feelers out and, we can turn that into a revenue maker.
I think so too.
Okay, so for we have a full agenda for that, September 11th meeting, so hopefully we'll be able to get some action if we need to take it at that time.
I have to answer, I've got to call the customs board with Penny Gibbons tomorrow morning.
Okay, well, this is on the agenda, but I'm happy to have a separate call with her also, but,
of the evening.
okay. Any other items?
Do you
Here,
have those calls with your package?
you can do that, Jim. It's up there.
You have those calls with Penny with your package?
The reach out to
For
Canvas.
budget. Yeah, and the budget.
Any other items? We didn't have other items on the agenda, but we received the related informational items. I have one. We're setting up a port tour for the VOCs and some other elected officials on 10/10. So mark your calendars for for October 10th, and then for the morning. Specific details about the tour will be sent to you once they are finalized. Okay. And so officer election, just for your calendar purposes, we will have some change in board members. 11/19 is when Commissioner-elect Moore will officially start a new term. And then at our first meeting thereafter, December 11th, we'll have officer elections. I am looking at the last meeting of October, just for full transparency, as a potential meeting to take off of our calendar. depending on how full our agenda is and what items we've got. At that point, we'll be done with budget discussions. And that is the second meeting, so we would have someone from Savage represented. So depending on how our business flows, that last meeting in October will potentially come off, which means we would formally recognize Commissioner Fullwood at a previous meeting, and I just did want to thank all the other candidates and Commissioner Fullwood and Joanne, the end of the election season. Just, it's been a pleasure getting to know you all more. We don't really get to talk at meetings, and it's always a pleasure to hear you talk to the public and to see the support that you have in the community. And every person that votes for you and every person that supports you on the campaign trail is someone who believes in you, and that should make you feel very good. It's well deserved, and appreciate your service. If there's no other items to be heard, Rosanna Driscoll?
One more correction, the meeting in December is for December 4th, because we are not going to have a second meeting in November. We pushed that up to December 4th
Okay.
and for Christmas.
Thank you for the correction. All right, with nothing else, adjourned.